Today, we're going to talk about this age-old debate, barbells versus bands versus machines. Which one builds strength most efficiently? Spoiler alert.
We are about to launch.
What's up, everybody? It's Liam TAKU here at Truth Not Trends. That's right. This is the podcast where we help you maximize your strength as safely and efficiently as possible. This is episode 198 of the Truth Not Trends podcast. I am here live in Oakland, California, changing the world one set at a time, training outside the box. That is Truth Not Trends. Today is a solo round, and I'm going to be talking to you about what is the difference between training with barbells, bands, machines. Which tools build strength most efficiently? This is something people always argue. It comes up all the time, even with our clients. Why is one thing better than another thing? Let's get into it. At TNT Strength, we pride ourselves on being what we like to call tool agnostic. That means we don't pledge allegiance to one piece of equipment over another. Our mission is simple: help people safely and efficiently build strength that translates into real-world functionality and longevity. Whether you prefer barbells, resistance bands, machines, or bodyweight training, the real question isn't what you use, but how you use it. Today, we're going to talk about this age-old debate, barbells versus bands versus machines. Which one builds strength most efficiently? Spoiler alert, it's not about the tool. It's about the stimulus, the progression, and the recovery. Let's get into some theory. Strength is a product of mechanical tension, progressive overload, neuromuscular recruitment, and of course, sufficient recovery. You got to stir that into the pot. As long as a training modality delivers these ingredients in an appropriate and safe manner, it can produce meaningful strength gains. What often matters most is consistency, effort, which is almost always left out by the average person, progressive overload, having a way to make the resistance increase over time, and of course, proper recovery. Let's take a closer look at the pros and cons of each of those different modalities through that lens. All right, the application. Let's look at barbells. What are some pros? They can enable maximal loading, of course, especially for big compound movements like squats and deadlifts, overhead presses. They're great for training multiple muscle groups simultaneously, which we love. It's efficient. They're great for tracking progression. Excellent. In fact, it's easy to measure those load increments. What are some cons of barbell training? There's definitely often a higher learning curve, and of course, there's potentially a higher risk of injury if your form breaks down. They often require more coaching and more focus on technique. This is not a bad thing, but it fights against one of our main tenets, which of course is the efficiency part. And of course, they could potentially stress joints and connective tissues, kind of varying the paths or losing control of that implement, depending, again, that always depends on people's structure and experience and so forth. So what's some evidence about that? There's a 2017 meta-analysis by Mr. You-Know-Who, Schoenfeld, confirmed that free weights, such as barbells, can be highly effective for hypertrophy and strength when properly programmed. No surprise. However, that same study noted that machines and free weights produce similar gains when matched for intensity and volume. All right, good to know. So what about resistance bands? Resistance bands are one of our favorite tools here at TNT Strength, Truth Not Trends, but of course, especially for home training. But man, there's so many advantages to them. Let's talk about a few of the pros. They're portable, and they're very portable, right? You can take them with you easily. You can pack them away in your suitcase. You can take them on vacation. You can stick them in your closet or under your bed. They don't weigh a lot. You can't drop them on your foot. So they're great for that. Safety. They can be very joint friendly, and of course, they're highly versatile. You're really limited, like most things, only to your imagination. Depending on how you anchor them and how you apply, you can create almost any version of any exercise that you can imagine, and some that you can't do with things other than bands. They have variable resistance, which can challenge both the concentric and eccentric, the positive and negative phases uniquely. Obviously, they're not quite the same as barbells because that resistance is accommodating as it stretches out. There's more resistance, and as they come back in, there's less resistance. There's advantages to that in some ways. Disadvantages, of course, they're great for rehab, they're great for warm-ups, they're great for aging populations, but we just love them, especially, as I say, for our home clients or people that are on a hybrid model that want to be able to train sometimes with us and sometimes when they're away. What are the cons of bands? They're definitely harder to quantify the exact resistance, right? You can't measure it unless you have a very expensive device that can detect those forces. Those do exist. Certain manufacturers have built specific devices that can actually use load gauges to tell you how much resistance is being applied through the range of motion while you're using bands, which is cool. It's not necessarily inexpensive, so it depends on your budget. They may not provide enough resistance for some very advanced lifters, although I found this is not to be true. The strongest guys we have coming in here often use bands, and there's definitely these days bands that can provide resistance that could match pretty much anyone in the world. And of course, the resistance increases while they stretch, which does change the force curve. Some people see that as a con. Again, it depends on how you apply it. Let's talk about evidence for those. There's a 2019 study in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research that found that elastic resistance training is just as effective as conventional weight training for strength development in both untrained and trained individuals. Another study in 2018 showed band training to be beneficial for improving muscular endurance and joint stability in older populations. All right, what about the classic, the biggest battle of all time, machines versus free weights? So what are some good things about machines? Some of the pros that we think: they offer some very safe and supportive ways, especially for beginners, to learn to apply resistance right away. There's less skill involved, and we think of this as a good thing. Sometimes I call that energy leaks when you're using so much energy to control where these devices go, dumbbells, barbells, things that are floating around in space. It can take away from your ability just to push or pull and focus on the movements. Counterintuitively, there's no truth in the idea that somehow machines don't activate as many muscle groups, right? Your muscles don't know the difference where that resistance is coming from. But as I say, for us, a pro is that they minimize the balance and coordination demands, allowing you to focus on effort and muscle fatigue. They can sometimes make it easier to isolate specific muscle groups as well, if that's one of the goals. What are some cons? Sometimes some people may feel they have less direct transfer to sort of real world functional movement. What does that mean? Not a lot. The reality is nothing that you do in the weight room transfers directly to other things unless you are training specifically for a weightlifting sport, powerlifting or Olympic lifting. Then obviously the movements you're doing with those barbells are specific to the goal of the sport. For everyone else, strength training has no transfer directly from the movements. It's just the strength itself that we're trying to achieve, which allows us to perform other activities with more ease. All right. So for some, that's a con, the idea of this less transfer. The fixed movement paths sometimes may also feel like a con to some people. Having a Smith machine bench press versus a barbell bench press locks you into that fixed path, or, hammer strength bar. Some of the more sophisticated machines these days have converging movement arms and so forth. They actually do change their path as they move, but it is still ultimately a fixed path. For some, they might give a false sense of security in the form of, if form or range of motion is ignored. But we love them. We use everything. As we say, we are tool agnostic. What's some evidence for machines? There's a 2020 paper published in Sports Medicine concluded that machine training can be just as effective as free weights for hypertrophy, strength, again, when intensity and volume are equated. There was another study in POLOS1 in 2014 found that leg press machines and squat free weight style, both of those trainings yield similar strength gains in all controlled populations. All right, so again, what we know is that your muscles don't know the difference. They only know resistance. They don't know what they're working against. They know effort. They know that mechanical tension. These things can be really achieved with anything that has weight to it, as long as it's challenging and you have good control so you can use it safely and efficiently. Let's talk about 10 things that we know about these tools and strength. 1, there's no single best tool for everyone. The best tool is the one that matches your needs, goals, preferences, and your current abilities. Number 2, proper intensity and progressive overload matter more than whatever equipment you decide to use. Number 3, machines are, in our opinion, my opinion, ideal for controlled effort, especially in high intensity training models such as mine. In TNT Strength, we focus on low volume, high effort workouts that are extremely efficient. Machines can be very effective for this. Less setup time, easier to move back and forth between them. Again, less worry on having perfect form. So especially for beginners, they're fantastic. Number 4, what about bands? Bands can provide effective resistance while, again, according to the research, minimizing potential joint strain. What do we know about barbells? They can allow for maximal load progression, but again, we know they really demand extremely good technique. I could end up spending a month teaching someone how to squat effectively, where it's very likely I could have them leg pressing safely and effectively on the very first day within 2 minutes. So we don't want to waste time. If someone wants to learn how to squat, we could teach them, but we, again, want to be safe and efficient. So we don't worry about it. We want to build a base of strength and then allow those other skills to manifest over time. Number 6, with older adults and rehab populations, we find that they benefit greatly with both machines and bands, and a combination is always great. 7, tool variety can enhance compliance and engagement over the long term. What does that mean? People get bored doing the same stuff all the time, right? And the reality is, because you changed the tool, we know we're working the pecs, we're working some kind of horizontal press movement. It doesn't really matter whether you're doing a push-up or a band press or a Nautilus machine. The same muscles are working. The recruitment pattern is slightly varied, but ultimately these people see variety and they feel like, hey, this is cool and interesting and new and different, and they don't get bored and they keep coming back for more. That's important. What's number 8? Exercise form, time under tension, and rest and recovery are the most critical aspects regardless of the tool. As we mentioned, all those things are key. 9, scientific research supports that strength gains across all modalities are essentially equal when all the variables are controlled. At TNT Strength, we use the best tool for the job, whatever the job may be. All right, so what's my final thoughts on that? At the end of the day, strength is strength. Your muscles don't know whether the tension is coming from a barbell, a band, or a selectorized machine. They only respond to load, effort, and progression. So don't get married to one tool. Stay flexible, stay evidence-based, be consistent. Whether you're training in your garage with bands, lifting heavy at the gym with barbells, or using a high-end Nautilus machine like we do at TNT Strength, what matters most is the intent and execution behind your training. Choose the tool that works best for your body, your goals, and your lifestyle. And don't be afraid to evolve. Train hard, train smart, stay strong. Boom, baby. That's what I'm talking about. We got some great references if you want to look up more stuff on that. We got, of course, Brad Schoenfeld put out his paper, Resistance Training Volume Enhances Muscle Hypertrophy. You can find that on PubMed. Lopes J said elastic resistance training, conventional resistance training, effects on muscle strength. So if you want the references for this, email me at taku@tntstrength.com and I will get you out those references. Otherwise, stay smart, stay safe, have fun out there, people. That's a short, sweet solo round with me, Liam Taku Bauer. Boom, baby. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Truth Not Trends podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us, whatever platform you are on. And also always share these podcasts with a friend. If you want to find out about TNT Strength and training with us live in the studio in Oakland, California, visit our website at www.tntstrength.com. You can also call us right here in the studio, 510-768-5421. If there's a guest you'd love for me to talk to or a topic you want me to dig into, shoot me an email at taku@tntstrength.com. That's TAKU @tntstrength.com. And whatever you do, get rid of that stupid blue Bosu. Let's cut this shit out, Des, with the ringing in the background. I'm just going to sit it out till it stops.
Mixed and edited by Desmond McNeese for We Mixed It, LLC. Go to whatsoundsawesome.com.
All right, I think it's done.